Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. This episode is brought to you by my friends over at Lexity. I've lived abroad in various countries, and one common denominator I've found is that dealing with foreign bureaucracy is a nightmare. Trying to navigate visa and immigration waters in another language is not something I'd recommend ever trying on your own, even for the most experienced of us. So when I recently had to renew my Spanish visa again, I turned it over to the pros at Lexity. They've already helped more than 5,000 expats and digital nomads find a home and thrive in countries like Portugal, or in my case, Spain, also Italy, France, and Greece. Some very desirable locations indeed. So whether you're trying to obtain your first visa abroad, purchase a property, or work through international tax issues, Lexity's team of friendly lawyers is here to simplify your journey. The team is super knowledgeable, bilingual, and thorough, and I seriously cannot recommend their services enough. My experience working with them has been incredible, and I can honestly say I don't know that I would have EU permanent residency if it wasn't for the help of the team at Lexity. So if you're ready to make your move abroad, then Lexity is offering an exclusive discount to About Abroad listeners. Grab 10% off your first service with the code AboutAbroad2023 and learn more over at Lexity.com in the show notes and start your abroad journey today. My guest today is my good friend Nathan, who joins me from beautiful Cape Town, South Africa, but he's originally from the US and has been calling various countries around the world his home for the last 10 years or so. And unlike a lot of people on the show who have built their location independence off the back of remote work and the tech sector, Nathan is actually one of the leading food bloggers in the world. So taking a little bit of a different path, we get into the nuts and bolts of creating a successful food blog and how that has afforded him the opportunity to travel the world for the last 10 years. We also get into his latest project, which is Gay Digital Nomads, a service for the LGBTQ plus community, and talk about some of the pros and cons of the different countries that he's called home over the last decade. This was a lot of fun getting to catch up with a good friend, and I hope you all will enjoy it as much as I did. Please help me in welcoming Nathan to About Abroad. I was thinking back on it before we were getting started recording here today, and I was reminded of how we first met. We have a mutual friend, as you know, and the audience won't know, Mitko, who's been on the show a couple times, and he connected us so there we are hanging out in Valencia. And I just recall like one of the funniest things that I heard in a long time was we're sitting there and you're like, yeah, man, I'm thinking about getting my Spanish passport so I can summer in Europe. I always wanted to say I summer in Europe. And I thought, man, this guy's a food blogger that's living in Mexico, going to summer in Europe. Like he's truly living my dream. I went down the wrong path.
Yeah, growing up, we were super poor growing up. And I remember, I think I told you when we met, the first time I heard summer in Europe, I was like, that's got to be something that like royalty does. You know, I thought that was reserved for like the top 1%. And this idea just stuck in my head of summering in Europe. And I'm like, one day I'm going to summer in Europe. And now, except for COVID, I've spent every summer in Europe for the past 10 years.
Wow. And is Mexico still full-time home, more or less?
Right. Mexico, I would say I'm in and out of Mexico more than any other country. Like there's nowhere full-time home at the moment, but my mom's retired in Mexico, and I've just spent so much time in Mexico. I have a bunch of good friends in Mexico, and also I get to see my friends and family a lot more. When I'm in Mexico, I get to, people are a lot more likely to come visit you if you're in Mexico versus, Thailand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a destination people want to go to, and it's also not too far from home. Home is where actually for the audience?
Oklahoma City.
Okay. Yeah. So originally Oklahoma City, kind of weaving in and out of Mexico and summering in Europe. The life of a famous food blogger doesn't sound like it sucks too bad.
No, things are pretty all right. Now I'm getting really into Argentina. So it's been Mexico for the past maybe 4 or 5 years. And I've spent the last chunks of the last 2 winters in Argentina. And I just booked my same Airbnb to return to Argentina next winter as well.
Oh, sweet, man. That's where in Buenos Aires in particular, or somewhere else?
Basing in Buenos Aires and then traveling around the country.
Okay. All right. That's an amazing place. It's a big time, like up and coming destination for digital nomads, like Argentina in general, but mostly Buenos Aires, I think.
Really big digital nomad community down there right now.
Yeah. Would you say comparable to what you found in Mexico or even bigger?
It depends on what city. I mean, if we're talking big cities, I think the vibe is better in Buenos Aires for digital nomads than Mexico City. But it's really hard to beat Playa del Carmen's digital nomad community. They have a really established, strong digital nomad community in Playa del Carmen. But if you're talking big, capital city to capital city, I found a better vibe and a more organized community in Buenos Aires than I did Mexico City.
Nice. Is it between, like, just thinking through both of these, I actually don't know the answer to either. I understand Mexico is like pretty easy to spend for like an American, for an example, but I guess maybe equally for a lot of people listening to the show, like Mexico is fairly easy to go and spend a significant amount of time, more than your standard 90-day tourist visa, as I understand it correctly. Correct. So correct me if I'm wrong there. And then also, how does that compare to what you found in Argentina?
So most people in Mexico are getting 180 days on arrival. The tourist visa is 180 days. Argentina is 90, but I have friends that have been living there for 5 years doing visa runs every 90 days. And you can just take a ferry over to, I believe it's Uruguay or Paraguay, I forget which one. Take a ferry, turn around, come back the same day, get 90 more days on the tourist visa. So, it is half the time you get in Mexico, but it's super easy to renew.
Wow. Is that, so can you do that? Do you know if you can do that consecutively? Like every 90 days, just go do that? Or is there you can do that once and then you're kind of capped?
No, my friend's been living there for 4.5, 5 years, and she just got her visa. She just got a visa to stay there. She's been doing visa runs for every 90 days. And she said, and what I've heard from the digital nomads that are there, Argentina doesn't care if you overstay. The only reason people are being like very aware of not overstaying is they don't want the stamp that a future country might consider if you ever tried to apply for residency or something. But I think they said Argentina themselves, they don't really care. Mexico used to be the same way. People would overstay their Mexican visa by a year and you pay like $60 on your way out. But I personally would never do it. I just don't want that overstay stamp in my passport because, you could be trying to go like Spain or something and no, we see you overstay your visas, your application denied. But yeah, it's not difficult for Argentina. And they have a digital nomad visa they recently launched as well.
Yeah. I saw that. I haven't I haven't had a chance to dive into the details of that, but I had heard that it was pretty flexible in Argentina. I think you just spelled out even more flexibility than I could have imagined. That's pretty, that's a refreshing, I guess, a breath of fresh air compared to like having been in Europe now for a while and mainly been dealing with like European bureaucracy, which is very heavy. And they are very strict about that stuff. Though, actually, I did meet a guy once when I was in Spain. Like when I first got to Spain, it was an American guy. And he was like, we were talking and I was like, so how do you do he said he'd been living here for like basically on and off for like 4 or 5 years. And I was like, how do you do the 90-day thing? And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, like you have like a 90-day limit, like a tourist visa. He was like, yeah, I don't know. I never really thought about it. Is that like a law? And I was like, yeah, man, that's a law. And he's like, I don't know. I've been coming and going for years back and forth. And, I've stayed for like 10 months at a time. Nobody ever said anything. Like, all right.
Yeah, that works until it doesn't.
Yeah. I couldn't live that way. Not for me. That's awesome, man. I think Argentina is an incredible country to have as a home base. So much culture, great jumping off point for the rest of Latin America. You got a good mix of like different types of people coming from all over the world. Awesome infrastructure. I don't know.
Food
I think that's a good choice. Food and wine. Yeah. For the food blogger, that makes sense.
Yeah, the food and wine, the wine especially. I tell people the food down there, the Argentinian food is really good, but they don't have like the variance in gastronomy like you might find in like Thailand and stuff like this. But right now, the dollar goes so far there. You can do international fine dining, is really great value for money doing that.
Okay. How do you get into that? Like if I showed up to Argentina, like how would I get into this?
Oh, just going out to the, any restaurant, all of their restaurants, we were doing like an 8-course tasting menu with wine pairings for 50 American dollars.
Wow. That is incredible. Actually, that reminds me, man, though I've only been to Argentina once, and I went to visit my best friend who was doing like a study abroad kind of program there. And he took me to one of those. We had like, I think it was like an 11-course meal with a sommelier and everything. And neither of us were making much money at that time. So, I don't remember what it cost, but it wasn't much compared to what you would expect. And it was just like one of those epic experiences in life. So, yeah, I'm glad you bring that up.
They're such a cash society as well. Like they everything, you can use credit cards at all these places, but I went to a 2 Michelin star restaurant, the only restaurant in all of Argentina that has 2 Michelin stars, and they offer a 10% cash discount.
Wow.
I think it's the
That's
only
awesome.
Michelin star restaurant I've ever been to where I got an email before, at the time when I made the reservation. It's like, by the way, bring cash and save 10%.
That's amazing. I love it, man. You're super tapped into the food and wine scene around the world. So if you say it's good there, I definitely trust your inclinations. And that actually brings up a point. Like we know each other and had plenty of conversations before, but I actually don't know like the history of how you got into food blogging. And for some context for the audience, like because I know you're a humble guy. You're not going to like brag on yourself, but you have built up a massive audience into one of the more successful food blogs out there. So this just isn't some little side project. This is like your livelihood and something you built an entire business and ecosystem around, which is really awesome and inspiring. So, and I imagine there might be people listening, like a lot of people that listen to About Abroad are seeking ways to build location independence, to spend more time abroad, travel more. And, I know this is your 10-year anniversary of traveling full time and living off of this business. So I think it could provide some pretty cool inspiration for people if you were able to share a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah, so it's 8 years living off of the business. I've been traveling. This is 10 years of full-time travel. The first 2 years, I was just traveling, just backpacking Southeast Asia. I left on what was supposed to be a 6-month tour of Southeast Asia. I was going to have some deep contemplation about my life. And the thought was, did I want to go to law school or not? I was working as a legal assistant in Oklahoma City, working on like the 17th floor of this massive office building in downtown Oklahoma City in a windowless office. My office was a janitor's closet that had been converted to my office. And I was going to take 6 months off and think about like, is this what I want? And became really obsessed with the idea of full-time travel, travel blogging, started following people like Nomadic Matt, Adventurous Kate, and took off on this 6-month thing and kept going and going and going. And then after about 2 years, I was running out of money. And also I was traveling without a purpose. And I was trying to figure out like, it's nice to be, full-time travel every day, but if you don't have a purpose or a structure or something that you're doing, every day gets to kind of be the same. So I needed money and I wanted to do something where I could keep traveling. And I needed a purpose. So I started what I thought at the time, everyone was saying at the time, you can't just start a travel blog. That's too broad. You need to niche down. I was like, okay, I'm going to niche down to food. And now if I had it to do all over again, food is not even niche enough anymore. Now you need to be, a celiac vegan food blogger or something if you really want to carve out like a super defined niche. I started 8 years ago, so at the time food was niche enough, but I don't know now that food is niche enough if I were just starting out again.
Interesting. Interesting. So like what happens from there though? I mean, you have the idea to say, I'm going to start a food blog. I like food. I could write about food. Like, what's the launching pad from there to where you are today?
Everyone just said, you want to start something that you're passionate about, something that you could talk about all the time. And I was like, okay, well, for me, that's food and food travel. And so I started the website, and yeah, at our peak numbers at our highest numbers, we had about 500,000 readers per month. And I didn't think that it would take off and get as big as it did. I really didn't have a plan or a really great business strategy when I started. And then I started going to these conferences, and I heard about some of other people's numbers and what they were making, and realized I needed to be a little bit more purposeful with it and be more strategic. So once I started putting effort into it, learning about things like SEO, content marketing, affiliates, things like this, and treated it more like a business, it took off from there. But, in the beginning, I was just kind of posting random stuff, like, whatever kind of thoughts I had about certain, it wasn't on brand. It wasn't on target. It definitely wasn't SEO. I don't even think I knew what SEO was in the beginning, in the early days.
Yeah, probably not, man. I mean, that's kind of the lesson within the story, right? Is like, you just have to get started. I heard Mark Zuckerberg say one time something like, if I had thought I needed to know everything about building social networks online before launching Facebook, like it would have just never come. Like I had to build something to learn what I didn't know. And I think that's where I see a lot of people fail on this journey as they're, trying to, especially people like trying to transition, like, you, for example, like going from, okay, I'm a lawyer, I'm in law school, and I'm gonna, now I want to become this like location independent traveler that has a location independent business and all that. But like if you don't get started, if you don't take one step in that direction, you'll never figure out what you don't know. And so, you have to at least be willing to roll the dice.
I heard it I was listening to a podcast yesterday. I heard it boiled down they boiled it, everything you said, down to now, not how.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, with my new project that I'm working on, that's what I'm trying to keep in mind. Now, not how. Now, not, let's just put it out there. Let's get the ball rolling. We'll figure out, you kind of learn to fly on the fall down. So that's what we're going, because otherwise I could sit around and take every course and, really think about how to get this idea going, or I'm just going to now, not how it.
Yeah, 100%, man. I'm very curious to hear more about the new project. Before we transition to that, for people that don't know, like someone who's, you piqued their interest a little bit in blogging, this might sound very elementary for you, but just like quick overview, how do you monetize a blog, and like what recommendations would you give to someone kind of sticking their toe in this water as far as monetization goes?
We're largely monetized with ads, by far and away, advertising networks. And I'm on Mediavine. In Mediavine, I think you have to have something like 50,000 sessions per month, but there are other ad companies where you can start smaller. She Media. I think She Media is the only one I would recommend. There's a couple others that I'm not big fans of, but before your numbers are to 50K a month, you can look at some of these competitors to Mediavine like She Media, but there's tons of ways, working with tourism boards, partnering with hotels, affiliate sales, running your own tours, doing retreats, digital products. If you know a city very well, if you spend a lot of time in, Playa del Carmen, like we mentioned, sell a guide to Playa del Carmen. If you great with photography, if your site is known for photography, sell a photography course. There's lots of different ways.
Nice. I think that's exciting for people, because a lot of us are, I tried to start a blog at one point, so I commend anyone that is able to do it, because I got a few months into it and realized, like, man, I really kind of suck at writing. And if the output isn't horrible, which, most of us are really harsh critics of our writing. So in my opinion, it was pretty bad. But like, even if I set that aside, like this takes a ton of time and energy, and like, I'm not really making any money from it early on. So it can be really disheartening at first. I think like if you have a little bit of a plan ahead of time, and the now, not how mentality, I guess that can behoove you as you're getting started.
Yeah, at this point, I don't even consider my site a blog anymore. Like, I think blog is the easier thing to call it just because people have a lot of familiarity with that term. But, I'm getting ready to write the second article on my website in the past 3 or 4 years. It'll be the second thing that I've written myself. So for me, a blog is someone's, and it's only because I'm obsessed, I'm obsessed with Buenos Aires right now. And I just don't think that any of my writers could do justice. So normally what I would do is I'll go to a city and then I'll, try all my restaurants, and then whichever ones that I want to recommend, I would just send a list over to one of my writers and say these 10 places. And I would have little notes, reservations required, order the duck, credit or cash only, no credit cards, and my writers would do a lot of the framework around it. And so I'm getting ready to do but I say this, I've been getting ready to do the Buenos Aires article for like 2 months now. And it's going to be, I think, the second thing that I write personally for my site in 3 or 4 years. I think a blog is more someone's kind of firsthand narrative. And it's, I went to this city, I did these things, these are my recommendations. And, at this point, we have a whole team of writers. We buy a lot of freelance articles from other writers. So we're trying to be more of like a travel resource than we are a travel blog.
Yeah, better phraseology there. I think I've told people or been like, Nathan, the food blogger. And so like you immediately connect that to a blog, but it's scaled well beyond that long ago. So it's an awesome resource.
Oh, thank you. I use that just because everyone knows what a blog is. So it's sometimes it cuts through, having to explain what it is you're doing. Like, I have a travel blog. Yeah, everyone gets that concept. Yeah,
for sure. Well, the link to that. While we're talking about it, mention the link to it, and we'll place that in the show notes as well.
Foodieflashpacker.com.
Awesome. Yeah. So that'll be, that's down in the show notes for those that are interested, and there'll be other links we'll mention as well that will be there throughout the conversation. We'll be right back to the show after a quick break for a note from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by my friends over at My Expat Taxes. For my fellow Americans out there, we all know tax season is upon us, and for anyone who's ever had the pleasure of dealing with multiple tax agencies in multiple countries, this can be a challenging experience. That's why when it comes to dealing with anything tax-related abroad, I always recommend hiring a pro to help you navigate this unknown space. In my experience, this not only saves you time and spares you from the unnecessary headaches, it also has literally saved me thousands of dollars in taxes over the years. So I am super excited to introduce you to My Expat Taxes, a true pro in this space that focuses 100% on U.S. expat taxes. Whether you're filing for 2023, catching up on back taxes, predicting a future tax obligation for a future move abroad, or just looking for some guidance, My Expat Taxes has your back with speedy and affordable online filing options and real human accountants to assist you as needed. Join the more than 16,000 other Americans living abroad who have used their services by visiting myexpattaxes.com via the link in the show notes. This episode is brought to you in partnership with my friends over at Lamont & Co. If you're planning a retreat, offsite, or group gathering of any kind this year, I highly suggest tapping into their extensive knowledge and experience to help you find the best possible venue for your event. I work with Kim, who has become my trusted advisor when it comes to planning any event around the world, and she's literally saved me hundreds of hours of work and has located venues I never would have found on my own. She even provides me with budget breakdowns and cost estimates for each location I'm interested in and negotiates contract terms on my behalf, all for free. If it sounds too good to be true, I thought the exact same thing at first, but I can assure you this is the real deal. Lamont is paid by the venues, not by you, so there's no cost, risk, or obligation here. So do yourself a favor and contact Lamont via the link in the show notes when you're planning your next group, retreat, offsite, or gathering. Before we dive back into the rest of the interview, I have a small favor to ask of the audience. If you are enjoying this episode and getting some value out of it, then please follow these very simple instructions. Step 1, pick up your phone. I'll give you a second. Step 2, leave a 5-star review for About Abroad. That's it. That's all I'm asking. It takes about 2 seconds. Of course, it is completely free to you, and it is the best possible way to support myself, the show, and everyone working on About Abroad behind the scenes. The funny thing is that there are thousands of people tuning into this show every single week, but we are very likely to only get a few reviews by industry standards, and reviews are the most impactful way that you can show support for the show. So if you have the time, please do so. And either way, I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Okay, now back to the episode. So you mentioned this other project that you're working on, which I'm also very interested to hear more about. I know very little about this, so I'll legitimately be learning along with the audience there, but give us a little bit of background.
So we are right now in the middle of hard launching gaydigitalnomads.com. We found there's a lot of information out there how to become a digital nomad, best cities, best countries for digital nomads, things like this, but there was not anything that was applied for LGBTQ plus people. So we're going to become that resource is the current mission.
Nice. Oh man. Well, a large mission to tackle, but I think it's in good hands.
It's ambitious.
with you.
Yeah, it's ambitious.
What's the feedback been so far?
We're just right now in the middle of launching it. So we did like a little bit of a soft launch. I sent it out to some people and, so far so good. I think there's a lot of, for any of your listeners that are, LGBTQ plus remote workers, there's just a little bit of additional concerns as far as when you're visiting or planning to visit somewhere, safety concerns and things like this. And a lot of times when you're researching these, they don't come up in a lot of the traditional sites that are covering them. So that's what we're tackling right now. All of our city guides, everything that we're publishing is structured around traditional digital nomad concerns such as affordability, cost of living, your on the ground expenses, Wi-Fi, co-working spaces, things like this, with the additional, what are the policies or laws in place or general attitude towards, the LGBTQ community.
Nice. That's I think it's really inspiring because at one point this was not really even a subject. Like if you picked up an old travel guide or something, like when I first started traveling, I would legit go buy the Fromers or something like that and flip through it. And there wouldn't even be a footnote about, if you identified as gay or in the LGBTQ plus community, there wouldn't be really any information specifically for you. These days, you might see it as a footnote or a asterisk or a bullet point in those guides, but you wouldn't necessarily see something fully dedicated to that. So I feel like you're really kind of paving a new path with this.
And the other interesting thing is, what you would traditionally do is you would just look up something about I think a quick one is, do they have gay marriage? And that's kind of what you use as an overall way to check the temperature of, that country's attitudes or perceptions. And some of the most gay friendly countries like Thailand, which I consider, an extremely gay friendly country, doesn't have gay marriage. And then, other places that are extremely, to me, I consider it, having traveled multiple times there as a gay traveler, Bali has some pretty not great laws on their books, but that's not the reality once you're there. So, we're trying to be a better resource than what's out there currently.
Are there any countries on the flip side of that equation that, you would have expected would be tougher for you to enjoy your life while you were there, and it turned out being very welcoming?
Turkey. Oh,
wow. Yeah. Interesting. The one that was coming to my mind, I have and this could have just been their experience, but there's a guy that I know, he and his husband traveled to Iran and had an incredible experience. And they were kind of blown away by the welcome and the community that they found there. But the welcome and openness that they received from, both the LGBTQ plus community and just, everyone that they came across, they didn't feel out of place at all and came home raving.
Nice. I actually would really like to go to Iran. I've heard nothing but good things about Iran I haven't heard much about the, gay travel factor, but the food, which really interests me. Everyone raves about the food in Iran.
Dude, you got to mix these two. I mean, you're going to be living your dream, mixing these two interests together now. Like you've got the literally the world at your fingertips.
Man, I'm already trying. So I'm buying a Facebook group. Someone already owned Gay Digital Nomad. So I'm buying the Facebook group off of the guy. And I ran a poll in there. And the thing I'm most excited about, I was like, let's do like a gay digital nomad, like a, 10-day work together, live together, something. But I wanted to have like a heavy food focus. So I'm trying to push like all my agendas at the same time.
Can us non-gays come too? Because that sounds awesome.
This is the same thing our mutual friend Grayson asked, and he's like, "What about allies?" Yes, please. Yeah, yeah. I just want to do like
invited.
Cool shit
Yes,
with cool people. Yeah, I just want to do like cool things with cool people. That's the whole plan.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I absolutely love it. And, like I said earlier, I mean, it's in good hands with you. So, and this is also a subject that like, I guess I'm appreciative that you're willing to talk about publicly, not like, it's something that lives in the darkness or something, but I also have not had a lot of people reach out to talk about this specific subject and some of the like challenges that may have come around. Like you started this for a reason, like you experienced a pain point in the market at least, and or through your own personal experiences, and like decided to do something about it. And I've had conversations with people in private on this subject, but not somebody that's been willing to like really like I guess like take a stand and make change. And so it's pretty cool that A, you're making that change, and then B, you're willing to like be so public about it.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to find. Like you say, these people that are kind of just trying to figure it out on their own. We're trying to find where these people are and get a bit of a community going.
Yeah, nice. Well, wishing you lots of luck. I hope the About Abroad community will support you as well, and we'll have the link to that in the show notes as well. So you've got our support completely there. How's the gay digital nomad scene down in South Africa? I believe that's where you currently are.
Currently in South Africa, when we were talking about digital nomad visas earlier, I don't know if you saw, they just announced that they're coming out with one as well.
Nice. No, I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, just within the last couple of days. When I got to Cape Town at first, I was like, it's nice. It's cool. Like, I like it. And now having been here for a little more than a week, I'm like, I love it. This place, yeah, it was a little bit of it wasn't love at first sight. It was a little bit of a slow, acclimation. And now I'm like, yeah, this might get put into heavy rotation. It's pretty nice down here. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the heavy rotation. I feel like that's a thing for you, right? Like you kind of cycle through places that you really, you're not someone that's like trying to check off like every single country with lots of bucket list places. That's my impression. It seems like you like to return to places that you really enjoy, and you enjoy the change and the transition that comes with that.
I was just thinking earlier today, like, there's 3 places right now. If I could come over and over to my apartment in Mexico City that I was in love with, my apartment in Buenos Aires that I'm in love with, this apartment specifically in Cape Town, and then just keep like 3 or 4 months as like wild card and variances, and go to Europe or go other places, I think I would be pretty content for a while. I'm kind of a creature of habit.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same, man. Like I like change. I've been on the road now for about 2 years. Like I started living abroad, I don't know, maybe like 9 years ago or something. Traveling kind of more consistently, like making that a staple of my life, like I guess about 9 years ago. But I've been living abroad now for 6 years, and the past two of those full time on the road, staying for a few months in a few different places. And I'm totally circling back to exactly what you just said. I want to have like 2 or 3 kind of home bases. Not that I necessarily need to own those places, though that would be nice, but just having those places that I know when I can just slip right back into my social life, my work routine, my exercise routine. I know where things are. I still want to go explore and find some new stuff along the way. But I like the idea of having those home bases and just continuing to like chase the seasons or chase the festivities or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I'm definitely chasing seasons. I mean, all of mine is just kind of chasing the summer months. But now it's getting to be, it's not even enough for me to just want to go back to Mexico City or just want to go back to Buenos Aires. I want to go back to this specific apartment that I stayed in last time. Yeah, I've already, I left Buenos Aires and I paid on Airbnb 10 months in advance. I went ahead and rented out the same apartment to return to. I can't just get dropped into the city. I want to, it's like going home. I want to go home when I'm there,
Yeah. Yeah. Having that sense of home in a foreign place is a very cool feeling.
Yeah, my Airbnb owners dropped by today. They had to do something around the house, and I'm already talking to them about coming back here next year and renting from them directly, and coming back to this same apartment.
So aside from the apartment, what is it about Cape Town that's struck you?
Number one, I always like living by the water. So, I mean, being by the ocean is amazing. I think it does a lot just for, mental well-being and just my general outlook on life when I'm by the water. I love that. I tend to be healthier. That one thing I'll say is it is making me a bit lazy. Everyone speaks English, which can be a plus or a minus. I was really focused on my Spanish, and it's to be halfway around the world in Africa speaking English all day, every day. Some people might be really into that. Tons of great restaurants, tons of nature, tons of hiking, cost of living. It's quite affordable here. You can have a really nice life for not a lot of money. People are super friendly, and just an endless amount of, day trips around here. They're famous for their wine. So, we have plans to go to Stellenbosch to do winery tours. The hiking seems endless. And also the digital nomad community is quite well organized. I'm in a couple of groups and I've already had to mute these WhatsApp groups because every day, someone's doing sunrise yoga or cold plunges or, after work drinks or, these kind of things. It's a well organized, large digital nomad community as well.
Man, that's a good sign when you have to mute the notifications. It's sad when it goes in the other direction and you're like, is anybody in here?
Yeah, I've got all these groups muted. They're quite busy. They're quite active.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's that's one of those cities that is kind of polarizing, which sounds a little bit extreme, I think, but I don't know another word to use. But I meet people that most people that I meet that have been to Cape Town talk about it in a very similar way to what you've just described. And then, it seems like there are a lot of other people who might show up with that first impression that you had and never get over that. Whether it be the disparity between the obvious income wealth gap that's there or the infrastructure or whatever it may be. I can't speak for everyone that's been there, but just that seems to be the impression. I don't meet a lot of people who go there and they're like, yeah, it was okay. I could go back. It seems to be people are on one end of the spectrum or the other. And it's kind of funny. You've experienced, it looks like you experienced a little bit of both of those already.
I think a lot of mine, we came into the weather. It was kind of cold. I was having to wear a jacket to dinner. It was raining every day. And I was like, they said this was the best weather time of year. And I was like, this is summer in Africa. And, I'm wearing a jacket to dinner. Yeah. In African summer. And then, this week has been gorgeous. Every day is a beach day. People are outside, from my place is right in front of the water. So all day people are running, jogging, sunrise, sunset, and it's nice. It's a good vibe. I like it a lot. I could see coming back here and doing a longer stay. It's very livable to me. It just seems extremely livable. Yeah. There's big disparity. There's definitely, you see a lot of income disparity here for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have to know what you're getting yourself into in that regard. Are there particular neighborhoods or like areas that when you go to Cape Town for the first time that you want to make sure you stay in or that you would target for someone who's just getting started on planning a trip to Cape Sea
Point or Green Point?
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Sea Point or Green Point. Those are the ones that come up over and over when people are saying, where should I stay? Sea Point or Green Point are the most popular.
Nice. All right. So what's the plan after this, man? Are you continuing on a trip through Africa? Are you circling back to Latin America? Are you going to come summer with us in Europe? What's the deal?
Latin America and summering in Europe. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have after the yeah after this I have my brother-in-law's he has a milestone birthday in Puerto Rico. So I'm doing the classic South Africa to Puerto Rico route.
Pretty standard.
Yeah, I'm gonna go do that. Go bum around Mexico for a while. I've got a conference there. My mom's retired in Mexico. Go visit my mom, and then yeah, going to Europe for the summer. I think probably be at the Bansko Digital Nomad Fest. Probably that's the end of June. Get over there for that, and now my summers in Europe. It's turned into I have weddings, I have birthdays. I have so many friends based there now that it's turned into weddings and birthdays and these kind of things when I'm over there.
That's a very cool part about the longevity of doing the digital nomad lifestyle for a while, because I mean, right, like a lot of people will dismiss it as something that you do in your 20s, or you can do it for a couple years, but it's not really sustainable. Here you are, you've been doing it for 10 years and you're talking about some of the, deep relationships that you built living this lifestyle around the world. You get to experience with those people in different places and pretty epic places at that. So like, I think hearing from people like yourself can be pretty exciting for people who see this as more of a long-term thing and not just this itch that they have to scratch in their younger years. And especially when you marry that with the professional side, like you haven't had to sacrifice a professional career, financial success, et cetera, to have that type of experience.
Yeah, like when you mentioned these deep relationships, for me, I really try and prioritize. If you can't be there, for the day-to-day stuff for people, then you really need to show up for the things that matter. So my friend, like my brother-in-law's birthday, it's literally halfway around the world, but it's a big one. So you show up for the things that matter. You show up for the things that are important. My friends that are getting married, I told them when they said they're getting married, I said, just let me know when and where, whatever it is, I'll make it happen. So if you can't be there for the daily stuff, it is important for this lifestyle to maintain these relationships that are important to you. And so you need to show up for the big things. And I really make an effort. You can't be there all the time for everything, but I try and make an effort to show up for the big things as much as I can.
Yeah, that's a good piece of advice. I know a lot of people, honestly, myself included, one of the, I would say probably the hardest part about the somewhat of like an alternative lifestyle is the level of guilt that you feel when you miss out on the day to day. As you just said, you can't be there for everything. I've missed people's birthday parties or, graduations or baptisms or whatever it may be, lots of little things, quote unquote, throughout the years that, you feel guilty not being there. Even just family members getting together for dinner or something, you go, oh man, I wish I could be there. Or maybe there's a little bit of a guilt trip. But I think if you prioritize being, if you want to take this lifestyle on and you're going to roll with some of those punches, that's the thing that you can do is prioritize showing up for the things that truly matter. And people will remember those a lot more than the little things that you might have missed along the way.
Yeah, if you miss a family barbecue, people would have liked you to have been there, but no one's going to be, that upset that you didn't make it. But if you don't come to a wedding,
yeah,
that's a different story. They'll remember that. They'll remember that.
Exactly. That's good advice. I'm glad that we've had the opportunity to kind of step outside and experience some of this. You've been doing it longer than most. Any other tips or kind of pointers you would give to somebody who's thinking about branching out into this type of full-time? I don't know if full-time travel is even the right word, but I mean, you don't really have a permanent home base, so you're moving around somewhat frequently, and even the places you do call home aren't in your home country. So I'm sort of categorizing it as full-time travel, but feel free to recategorize as needed. But in any case, any tips for someone else that's maybe considering kind of following in your footsteps?
You mean tips regard to business or personal, as far as the business side of it or the personal?
I guess it could go either way, whatever you think is most applicable. But I mean, I was thinking more so in the personal realm. with this question, and like the particular, like the travel, you know, like you haven't gone the traditional route of like getting a career, settling down in your hometown, and working the same job for 40 years and, you know, taking your 1 week of vacation. So you've gone in a totally different direction. And it's normal to you and somewhat normal to me, but a lot of people that write in to this show, like they're literally just dipping their toe in this water. Like I'm thinking about, you know, going to spend 3 months abroad next year. I'm thinking about quitting my job and moving to Portugal or whatever it may be. And, you know, they're just looking for like any tidbits of advice that a seasoned veteran of this game has. And you're certainly that, of course.
I would say like coming up with a passion or a reason or a point, you know, our mutual friend Grayson, I think he's very good at this. He's into kite surfing. So now when he goes somewhere, it's because it's, you know, the best place in the world to learn how to kite surf. And I think when I started, I was just like, you know, who has the cheapest flights? You know, that was my whole direction was, you know, I didn't have a purpose or anything. I was, you know, where can I go the furthest, the cheapest? And then I got there and, you know, what was I doing? Just food. Well, everywhere has food. So, you know, follow one of your passions, figure out what it is that's super exciting to you. You know, hiking, kite surfing, architecture, photography, nature, you know, whatever your thing, surfing, and go chase that. You know, it's going to be more meaningful to you when you're going somewhere and it's for a mission. You know, you're super into photography or nature photography. Okay, we'll go on some safaris in Africa. You know, go with a purpose, go with a mission, go with a goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice, man. I think another one, you kind of alluded to this earlier and it aligns with that, is like the language. I know a lot of people that have set out, they've gone to spend like long periods of time in places, but they didn't think about the fact that like the language wasn't really important to them. They weren't going to learn it, or they learned later that it was, but they hadn't thought about that as a point. And it's such a rewarding thing to move to a country and just, you're going to pick up so much of it just by being there. If you put a little bit of intentionality behind it, you'd be amazed how you can pick up the basics of a language just by spending a bit of time there. And so like, for me, that means two things. Like I've learned that this is something that I'm really interested in. So I'm kind of like picking countries that I want to spend time in, a little bit based on language. Like, do I want to learn the language or not? And like, am I willing to put the effort in to learn that language or not? And so that's a little level of intentionality that I've tweaked a bit, I guess, that's helped me enjoy places even that much more. I'm here in Italy now. I'm taking like 2 1-hour Italian classes a week. I'm not going to become fluent, you know, but I'm enjoying that process, and it's making the little day-to-day interactions so much more fun. And I kind of knew that would be the case. It's one of the reasons I came here to Italy this time around, was because I was like, I actually want to learn Italian. So, yeah, I think that's like a great point, is to like just put a little bit of effort into thinking through like what's important to you. What are you going to get out of this? And if you just kind of wing it and just go into it with like no real goal in mind, I think the novelty wears off pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what happened with me. And when you say about the languages, if you notice the places I mentioned that I'm pretty set on returning to my heavy rotation, it's like Buenos Aires, Mexico City, Madrid. You know, my vibe right now is big Spanish speaking cities. And a lot of that is because I really do want to, you know, my Spanish is functional, but it's far from fluent. You know, there's a lot of room for improvement. So yeah, I mean, that's why I'm prioritizing a lot of my kind of heavy rotation places, is so that can be a focus of my travels.
Man, splitting the time between Mexico City, Buenos Aires, and Madrid, throw in some Cape Town and a few other little stops along the way. You're living the dream, my friend. Congrats on all the success, and thanks for thanks for sharing everything that you do here. I love all the work that you do, but this is super cool to get you on the podcast finally and learn a little bit more about your story. So appreciate it.
No, of course. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. Well, before I let you go, just mention really quickly, we already touched on a couple of the links, but let's reiterate them here. Where can people go to learn more about you, connect with you socially? Any of the websites you mentioned, let's just throw them again here. And then again, they'll be in the show notes for people as well, so they can just access those with a quick click.
So main website is foodieflashpacker.com. It's the same on Instagram if anyone wants to follow me there. And then the new project, gaydigitalnomads.com, same thing, same on Instagram as well, if anyone wants to check that project out. We're hopefully announcing some retreats coming soon. Everyone we talk to, they're most interested in retreats, so we're working on trying to get those. If anyone wants to get on the mailing list, as soon as those are ready, we'll send that out.
Nice. All right, great. Well, check out the show notes to get quick access to those, and definitely do follow along. Nathan's work is top notch and a lot of fun to follow as well. We talked about a lot of the like technicalities of what you're working on, but you also just share like, here your travel stories. Here's the apartment that I just checked into, and here's where I'm going next, and details about your, the adventure of getting from one place to the next. So it's you're a lot of fun to follow, and I think people will enjoy it.
Thanks. People really seem to like those little apartment tours I do. And I think that, for anyone that's wanting to, considering doing this, everywhere I go, and it's usually like a 1 minute video or something. I'm like, this is what, $1,200 a month gets you in this city, around the world or whatever. So I think that's kind of interesting for people that have the thought that it's something they might want to do. It's kind of real-time information.
Yeah, totally. I think a lot of people just want to see the realities of the lifestyle that you're living, right? Like not just the highlights and not just the sights and even the horror stories. It's like, dude, this is what normal life looks like in my day to day. And it's probably not that different from yours, except maybe a lot cheaper in a lot of cases. So yeah, I think that's fun to follow.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I'll see you in Europe this summer.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it. I will be here. So we're crossing paths. We tried last year. It didn't line up, but this year we're gonna make it happen. So maybe we'll do a follow up to this with an update on how Gay Digital Nomads is doing, but we'll do it real life from like a Greek island or something.
Oh man, that sounds perfect. Let's do that. Hopefully by then I'll have some big success stories to talk about.
Awesome. Looking forward to it, my friend. Safe travels, and catch up with you soon.
Thanks, man. Have a good day.
Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. For those of you wondering how you can best support the show, I have made it super simple for you. Just go over to the show notes of the episode that you just finished listening to and click on one of the two following links. aboutabroad.com/newsletter to get our monthly newsletter, no spam, guaranteed, or ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, where you can quickly and easily leave a review for the show. It's not just important to me, it also helps more wanderers just like you find us. Finally, don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, and we will see you again next week. Thanks again. Hasta luego, amigos.